And welcome back, and now we're with our good friend David Jenkins of the Standard Democrat. And David, it's good to have you back with us.
Good to be here.
Sure, last time we saw you was probably in the spring, and we went through the summer, quick summer, and back with fall sports, and of course with football, everyone looks forward to. And we're 3 weeks into Missouri football now, and you were actually here last night for the game we had here locally, Dexter and Sikeston.
Yeah, it was it was a big game. Sikeston was wondering if they could beat Dexter. Dexter was wondering if they could beat Sikeston, and obviously Sikeston had the better team last night.
Yeah, we were really looking forward to this game. Just coming in, we know Dexter was probably going to be just as strong, maybe stronger than last year's team at Sikeston with that great run they had last year with all that senior talent. They knew they were probably going to taper off a little bit this year, so we thought that was going to be a really nice matchup between these two teams. And Dexter came out. First drive, 5 plays, just marched down the field and scored, and it looked like from that point, Dexter was going to have a real shot at taking down the Bulldogs.
Yeah, it was all Dexter early on. Sikeston came out and ran a little trick play that didn't work. Tried a few other things that didn't work. Dexter dropped an interception that could have been an easy touchdown. Then they threw 2 picks, inside the 20, and they could have had a 28-0 lead there in that first quarter had things went their way, and it didn't, and Sikeston second quarter started taking advantage of it.
Sure, early on it was Dexter opening up with that drive, quick, scored, and then they got the ball back, and they were in deep into Sikeston territory, but committed some turnovers there. I know Stevens threw a pass in the end zone, and they intercepted it, so that was a missed opportunity there, and then an interception in their territory again. So there was 2 potential scoring opportunities that they turned it over to Sikeston, and Sikeston really hampered with penalties in that first quarter and first half. That really kept them on that side of the field.
Yeah, it was a sloppy game that first half, especially. There's a lot of penalties on both sides, a lot of big plays called back for both sides because of penalties, and that's just early season high school football. But you hate to see it because there was a lot of big plays there that for both teams that were called back because of penalties.
Sure. And we had a halftime score of 22-14, I believe, in favor of Sikeston, and it was a close game there in the first half. And the second half pretty much, was a tale of 2 halves. Really, it was a close-knit first half, but second half, Sikeston got some big plays, and Watson really took over the game from that point.
Right. Dexter tied it up 22-22. They got the fumble early there in the
Sikeston
second half.
had the opening kickoff.
And then they fumbled on their first play, and Dexter took it, marched it right down and scored, and it's 22-22. And you're thinking we're going to have a good game here, and Sikeston marches right back down and scores, and they get the onside kick and recover it and score again, and then they get Dexter fumbles. They take advantage. They just took advantage of Dexter's mistakes, and like I said, Watson just had a heck of a game, set a school record with 328 yards, and he's a heck of a runner, real fast, can cut real quick, and they really like him, and plus he was doing it in the second half with cramps, so it was a good performance by him, and I think Sikeston ran for almost 500 yards. They just kind of ran crazy there in that second half.
Sure, and I remember looking at the first quarter stats from last night. They only had 40 yards of offense, and after the first quarter, so from the second quarter all the way through, they had 400 plus yards probably, and those 3 quarters, the second through 4th
right,
quarter.
and they did the same thing as Charleston last week. They came out the first quarter, they just kind of were flat, and they were flat again. Last night whenever they came out, but they kind of picked it up, and they picked it up in a big way last night. Just all kind of they just dominated the line of scrimmage, did a lot of good runs. They'd get to the corner or just put it up the middle, and Dexter just couldn't bring them down.
Sure. And Dexter's still looking pretty good, especially when in the Class 3 going forward. They've had sizable wins over Class 3 opponents in their first 2 weeks, St. Genevieve and Park Hill Central, and they're up in the neighboring district up north. So, they're looking pretty good going forward, defeating those 2 teams sizably. And, of course, in their current district with New Madrid, Kennett and Fredericktown, they're gonna match up well with those teams. So they're probably looking at a season similar to last year, potentially making it back out to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I would think that they are. I would think that right now they're the front runner to get to the quarterfinals. They got a really good offense. Stevens is a good quarterback. Miller's a good receiver. Chase Young's a good receiver. They got some good running backs, and good offensive line. I mean, so their offense, I think they need to, take care of some defensive stuff. But they could make a run in the playoffs, and who knows who you're going to get in the quarterfinals, and maybe they can pull an upset if they. I don't know how John Burroughs is this year, but they seem to always reload. You never know who you're going to get once you get in those playoffs, and Dexter's got as good a team as anybody around.
Sure, and they're looking very good for the first 2 games. They looked, and just you potentially run up into someone that you're not necessarily going to face playoff time, but in the regular season you're going to run up against a team that's just bigger, faster, stronger, and that just seemed to be the case last night.
Right, and Sikeston has owned Dexter for years. Even back when I was in school, back in the early '90s, Sikeston just seemed to always beat Dexter, and even when Dexter had good teams, it's just just a good rivalry there, and Sikeston just has a tendency to own it a little bit.
Sure, I mean it was a great game to watch for much of that game, but like you said, a few quick scores by Sikeston and a turnover and another score, it just got out of hand there at that point. But a great game to watch. Be sure to watch that replay come Sunday. We'll be looking forward to that. And some other notable games in the area, I was really looking forward to this Hayti-Chaffee matchup. They're one of the smaller schools, both in Class 1. I know Hayti, they've had a couple big wins early on, and we had the chance to see Chaffee play Portageville last week, and I was impressed with them. They're very consistent, both offensively and defensively. They're very disciplined, so I was really looking forward to that matchup, but it was Hayti taking care of them quite easily.
Yeah, it was a close game through in the third quarter. I think it was maybe 14-6 or something in the third quarter. It was a real close game, and then Hayti got a couple quick scores, and they took advantage of some Chaffee turnovers and just kind of put it away. But Chaffee hung with them for a while, and if they were to meet up down the line, it's something that Chaffee can say, look, we held them for a while, and maybe we can play with them. I think some people were kind of surprised that they hung with them as long as they did, because Hayti just has great athletes. Their quarterback is tremendous. And they're just a very good team, and Chaffee's a good team also. I think even in a loss, I think Chaffee can take a little bit away from it and have some confidence.
Sure. Hayti, they've got a really strong program down there in the football. They play out of Class 1, and they typically do pretty well. Looks like they've got themselves a pretty good team this year.
Yeah, they do. They're really good. They're really quick. Got running backs, receivers, and like I said, their quarterback's really good. They've just got the whole package down there.
Sure. And other games to look at, Nevada County Central is going. They've taken it pretty rough the first 2 games, and playing Farmington, that's no easy task.
That's not going to help anybody. Farmington's really good this year. I would consider them the front runners in that Class 4 District 1 over Sikeston and Cape, and those. I would think that they would be the front runners this year. They've got a lot of kids back from last year, and their quarterback's really good. New Madrid only has 2 seniors. They're really young. They're kind of building for the future, and they're struggling. They've only scored 1 touchdown all year, and they're just really struggling offensively, and obviously defensively against a team the caliber of Farmington, they struggled. But defensively, they did pretty well against Poplar Bluff. I think they held them to just 45 yards last week. So they lost 20-0. They had some special teams breakdowns, but they're a team that'll be a couple years from now that they'll be good again, and they're just kind of building toward that with their youth.
Sure. And other games, Portageville really awakened. They really come about, and that was largely due to the fact that Tevin Walker played last night for the Bulldogs.
Tevin Walker, the five starters actually had been out of the first 2 games, and then were able to play last night. And Tevin Walker had 3 touchdowns. I think he returned 2 kickoffs for touchdowns. And Tevin Walker is a good player, very quick. He brings a lot to the table, and when you're missing 5 starters, it's going to be tough to beat teams, especially like Crothersville, and Chaffee, who both are pretty good teams. It's going to be tough to beat them with five starters out. And Portageville will start playing better now that they've got everybody back and healthy and everything. So they ought to be picking it up a little bit.
Sure, and Dominique Walker is also one of those players that came back. I believe that was out when at least last week against Chaffee, against Chaffee last week, and we were pretty much saying that if they had some of those players in the mix, it would have been a good ball game against Chaffee. Right,
and they bring a lot to the table. A lot of athleticism, a lot of speed, and stuff that they really didn't have a whole lot of in their first couple games. And they play both ways. So you're missing 5 starters offense, 5 starters defense, so that they're a much better team with those guys back.
Sure. And other games to think of. last night. Like I said, there was probably three games there that really looking forward to seeing. And some just to talk about some other teams. Malden, they've had they've lost some talent last year. I think you can tell from their first couple games that they've taken some losses to, like Hayti. But Tanner Murphy, he's behind the center. You're going to have a chance.
Yeah, he's a heck of a quarterback. I think he threw for 3 last night, ran for 2, and then returned an interception for a touchdown. Kind of did everything. He's a good player. And Malden Big, they're a good team. They're going to be, they'll compete. They've got to go against Crothersville. That'll be interesting. It was a good game last year. Kind of interested to see what happens this year with those two. But I would think they're the 2 favorites in their district and over there, and against Charleston East Prairie are probably just a little bit below them. And Malden's got a chance to make some noise in the playoffs too. So they're
and Crothersville right there. I wouldn't say I'm shocked with the team that they've brought back, but I am just maybe a little surprised just due to the fact that they had more than 10 seniors, big-time players, move on from last year's team, and they come back with some younger players this year, and it's like they don't miss a beat.
Yeah, Coach Morgan does a good job with them down there, and they've got that program rolling, and they're just they're kind of just reloading instead of rebuilding. They've got all kinds of speed, and they know how to use it, and they've just got a really good program going around there right now.
And some of the players that come to mind, I know they have was it Daryl Monroe, the sophomore they have.
Yeah,
he's
a sophomore,
and they say he is just lights out on defense.
Yeah, he's a good defensive player, and then they've got Fonda, I believe, on offense as a runner. I think he's had a couple 200-yard games so far, and they've got a good quarterback who gets the ball to the people who need to have it. So they like I said, they just got that program rolling right now, and when they're just replacing people with people almost as good. Crothersville has had a good team for several years now, and it seems like they're going to continue that.
Sure. I'm thinking they went to is it the semifinals last year?
I think it was the quarterfinals. I think they lost
Maplewood Richmond Heights. Maplewood Richmond Heights. So it looks like they're poised to make another run this year down there in Crothersville. And boy, I went to school with Nathan, and he knows, or college that is. He went he knows his football, so he's been there for a good while, and he knows the players, and seems like he just reloads them every year. So we'll be looking forward to seeing how they do for the remainder of the year as well. And looking to other sports, I know we got some very talented volleyball teams in the area. I know in Class 2, I think there's 4 teams here in Southeast Missouri that are in the top 10 in volleyball. I think there's Bloomfield, there's they're not coming to mind now, but we'll get to those rankings later. Yeah. But there's quite a few teams up there.
Scott City's one of the top teams in the area. I think they're Class 2, and they're all those teams are playing in the big SEMO Spike tournament this today, and they're I think probably the 3 best teams up there are Notre Dame, Perryville, and Scott City, and so it'll be interesting to see who comes out of there. Dexter has a pretty good team. They played Notre Dame yesterday and lost 25-17 to 25-17, if I'm not mistaken. But they've got a good team too. They're going to make some noise in Class 3. If they're just going to, of course, they've got Perryville and Notre Dame in front of them, so that's kind of tough. But they've got a really good team. There's a lot of good volleyball teams in the area, a lot of good small schools, and today's kind of a big measuring stick for a lot of those schools with that SEMO Spike Classic up there.
Sure, that's the big tournament that takes place each year in volleyball, and we'll be sure to have those results for you come Monday and the days ahead right here on YHC. Fall baseball, it's the thing with fall baseball. It's more like exhibition play because the state sanctioned playoff play is in spring. So basically, it gives them a good chance, because with baseball it's so hard, because through the winter you can't really play unless it's indoors, and it's a good chance for them to play in the fall. And some of the teams that you always look forward to is Cooter. Cooter's always there.
Yeah, Cooter's always good. They just kind of, they're like Crothersville football. They just kind of reload. They're always going to have good baseball teams down there. They love their baseball, and it's good to see because a lot of teams around here, they just kind of ignore their baseball programs and stuff. But Cooter's big on the baseball, and they're good.
Sure. So it's kind of hard to keep up with fall baseball because last spring, it's when those players move on, the seniors, they're okay. A few months later, they're playing in fall, and it's kind of hard to keep up with what the teams have. But we'll be bringing those results to you as well, and we'll be looking forward to the spring because last year we had quite a few good teams here in the area last spring. So we'll be looking forward to seeing how the teams play out this spring as well. Is there any updates going on here locally that we might be kind of overlooking that viewers might take some interest in? I know we had a story on Cape Central's football field a few weeks ago that we reported on. That $3 million complex.
It's a very nice stadium. A lot of other schools are going to be envious, but I like the field turf. But yeah, they're awful proud of their stadium and everything.
Have you got to take a look at it?
I have seen it, and it's very nice. It is very nice. Seats about 5,000, and kind of curious to see what happens when they play Jackson. I think it's next week. If they'll pack it, if there'll be enough seats. But yeah, it's a really nice field, and their field and Farmington's are just kind of top of the line around the area. Just really nice and just nice fields. I think some other schools are going to start going to this field turf pretty soon.
You gotta raise the money for it.
Raise the money, but
you gotta raise the money.
But once you do, you've got it for 10, 15 years or whatever. So
yeah, it's about $1 million to put a field turf in. I think they estimated theirs to be $800,000 to put in just the turf, and I think all in all it was about a $3 million project for the whole complex.
Right.
So, but that's good for Cape Central. That's one thing. I went to New Madrid, so. Play Cape Central. It's their Houck Stadium, which is nice. You get to play on the college field, but they didn't necessarily have that kind of home or the home field at their school.
It never had the home field advantage for Cape, and at the same time, and you always had to play on Thursday nights. And Thursday nights, you just can't get the crowds out, and you're out of your routine during the week and things, and it never had a comfortable feel about it. Whenever Sikeston would go up and play or anything like that, it just never, you just never were comfortable. And Cape is kind of the same way. They just never really felt real comfortable. On those Thursday nights, you're one day less preparation and everything. Either that or you have to play on I know they've done some Saturday afternoon games and things when SEMO is out. You want your high school football on Friday night, and now they've got something they can call their own, which is good. And it's drawn a lot of interest from and got a lot of players out, too. So it's helped them that way too.
Sure. Friday night it's sacred in high school, especially high school football. Get the kids out, get all the student body involved, and that'll really help them in that regard as well. So it's good to see that Cape Central's got their home field, and they'll be able to take advantage of that. That school pride and having on Friday night football. Trying to think of anything. I know we had Brian Rosner on 2 weeks ago to talk about the new playoff format coming up next year, and he put out a great column out there for everyone to see, and I think I'm going to like this new playoff format. I think it's at least an upgrade of what we've got now. Yeah,
I think so. I think the only drawback is the scheduling. A lot of I know Sikeston's worry is that nobody's going to want to schedule them in those last week or two before the playoffs, because you don't want to get your players hurt. You don't want to play a team that you may see down the line in the playoffs. You want to play them earlier. So scheduling is kind of a problem. A lot of your schedules that you've normally had in the years past, you may not get to play certain teams in certain weeks like you like, but that's the only drawback that I see from it. I think that, and you really don't have you may not really have a true district champion. I think I think I'm like you. I like it. I like the fact that it's better than just playing just the last 3 weeks. At least your games through the season all count, and I like that.
And what I've tried, and Rosner did too, was basically state that it's a lot like the basketball and the baseball and just the other sports in high school. That it's just going to mimic that.
Right. And I have no problem with that, and I think, like I said, the only drawback I really see is just the scheduling issue for some of the teams. Some teams won't have a problem, other teams might, but I think in the long run, I think everybody's going to end up liking this one a lot better. It's just going to be maybe hard to follow, for the first year or two that goes through it, but I think everybody will end up liking it.
I don't think probably one thing I thought that wasn't really necessary that they're going to do is have the point system. I really didn't understand why it was necessary, just because, when you get to district time, there's going to be 8 teams in a district at that point. I just don't know why they couldn't just have the coaches come together and determine the seeds themselves.
Right. Just like seed them like basketball, everything else. I don't know.
I'm thinking they might make that transition.
Yeah, that may be something they do. I don't know. Maybe they just want to take it out of the coach's hands and just kind of have a mathematical formula for doing it. But I'm kind of like you. I really don't understand it, but we'll see how it works. I'm sure it'll be the first 2 years kind of going to be a trial, and then they'll go back and revisit it and see how they need to tweak it and everything.
Sure. Yeah, we'll be looking forward to it. And the thing is, football is just treated so much differently than the other sports. We see it in college football, of course,
right.
The BCS against how the other sports are done. So it's a juggling act with how you're going to deal with football. So we'll see how this new format turns out next year. So anything else, David, that we might be overlooking that might be out there?
I can't think of anything.
Yeah, we're 3 weeks into football season, so we're kind of seeing how these teams are lining up against each other, maybe kind of looking down the line a little bit to district play and seeing how they're going to match up. So it's exciting as always for high school football here in Southeast Missouri, and we'll be looking forward to how it all turns out. I'm really excited from the small schools in Class 1, Portageville and Hayti and the Chaffee teams down there, all the way up to Class 4. Of course, you got Sikeston and Farmington that's going to be up a little ways, but and here in Dexter in Class 3, and then Class 2 you've got Crothersville, a tough team coming back, and Malden's right there in the mix. So it's pretty exciting year once again this year.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of teams around here that can make a run in the playoffs. Like you said, Sikeston, Crothersville, Farmington will be one of those teams. Malden, Hayti. I expect big things out of Hayti this year. I know Valley's kind of the Class 1, but I expect big things out of Hayti this year. I think that Hayti is a team that can give Valley some problems, and like I said, there's a lot of teams around here that's going to make a run at the playoffs this year.
Sure, Valley Catholic up there in St. Genevieve, Class 1 state champions, and Hayti. That'll be one match to see coming up later on if that happens to turn out that way with Hayti and Valley Catholic. Well, David, we appreciate you coming on today as your regular guest here on the Roundtable, and we try to have you on periodically throughout the year to keep us updated on what's going on. We appreciate you having you on.
Glad to be here.
All right. That's David Jenkins of the Standard Democrat. Appreciate it. Always appreciate him coming on. And he's one of the best sports writers around out of the Standard Democrat in Sikeston. And we'll take a break and come back with some